What's up, YouTube? Rock Chalk 14, making my weekly vlog, Week 6 NFL picks. You see I'm rocking the Minnesota Vikings hat. I told you last week I was from the Kansas City area, but I'm actually originally from Minnesota. I live in the Kansas City area now, so I'm a fan of both teams. But this is the OG, if you will. So, anyways, this week, again, basic principles. You need to go into it looking that you can afford basically 3 studs, and those need to be the 3 studs that you are the most sure of. You need to find value in certain areas. You need to realize that you need to spend money in such a way that provides the highest possible score. An example of that is, again, I continually play against people that pick Peyton Manning, and he is a great player. And he is the best fantasy player in all of football. But when he costs over $10,000 to your salary cap, it takes a huge hit. He has to have career games, like Tony Romo's type games from last week. The thing about Manning is he's throwing on average these 4 touchdowns, but again, you gotta pick value and where you can see it. So other principles, unless you go Jimmy Graham, I don't really necessarily recommend playing more than 6K for a tight end. Last week I got beat by Tony Gonzalez on Monday night, so I guess maybe that's not always the case, but that's just my style. So, all right, with that said, I'm not going to spend as much time going through principles like I did last week. If you're not sure, kind of the general ideas, I have a video of general ideas, and I have a video from last week where I spent a little bit more time going into it. Looking at matchups this week, obviously the Denver matchup is really good. They're playing against the Jags, who are terrible. But the thing about that matchup that you have to be a little worrisome, especially going with like Peyton Manning, is that if you figure the Broncos are going to get up so fast that you worry about them playing more than even half a game. And in fact, I saw an article coming out about how it was on ESPN Insider, how they think that the Broncos should even just sit Manning for the whole week. I don't think that's going to happen. I think he plays at least a half, probably 3/4, depending on what the score looks like. For one of my must-have players, one of my studs, I'm probably going to pick one of the Broncos wide receivers, either Welker or Demaryius Thomas. That is partially because, even though I don't like the fact that I wouldn't be shocked if the starters get pulled fast, I think they're going to score early and often, and I think a lot of people are picking Broncos this week, so I think you have to pick one of those two at least just to neutralize your opponents. So I'm probably going to pick Demaryius Thomas. Again, they're both great. Welker's cheaper than Thomas, but like last week, I think Welker outscored Thomas. Thomas outscored Welker. So, okay, so that's the first big matchup. With that said, the Denver passing defense is giving up an average of 347 yards, and they've given up 11 touchdowns on the season to opposing quarterbacks. I'm not going Blaine Gabbert just because I can't go Blaine Gabbert. You just can't. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that part of me plugged it in just because he is so cheap, just to see how the rest of my team would shake out. So, something to consider. Justin Blackmon's hovering at 6,200. He's kind of a wild card pick. He might be a decent fill-in at your 3rd wide receiver spot. You also got to figure they're going to be down, so they're going to be throwing the ball pretty much the whole game. The next big matchup that I'm looking at here, Dallas is playing Washington, and that goes both ways. Both teams are terrible on passing defense. Dallas is giving up an average of 326.4 yards a game to opposing quarterbacks, and they've given up 14 touchdowns. Now, that's partially skewed because of the game last week, so that's something you got to consider. And Washington's giving up close to 300 yards a game. They've given up 9 touchdowns, and they've been rough. Coming off that week, Dallas is going to be motivated. They're going to be good. I think Dez Bryant is a must-have player this week. And Tony Romo is a possible 3rd stud. If I go stud quarterback, I'm probably picking Romo. Just looking at it, Romo is costing $8,800 right now. So he would constitute a stud. So if you pick one of the 3 stud quarterbacks, I'm going Romo. Otherwise, I'm going to go cheap. Probably looking at Terrell Pryor again. Just he's been consistent week in and week out, and he's not bad, but he's not great. So he's going to get you a couple hundred yards and 2 touchdowns every game, and so that's something I'm probably looking at for a cheap quarterback. If I'm going stud quarterback, I'm probably not going anybody but Romo. I'm going to spend the money and get him, and then just sacrifice the stud spot later on. So as it looks, I'm looking at my stud. I'm probably going Demaryius Thomas, probably going Dez Bryant. For running backs, stud running backs, Again, Jamal Charles is playing the Oakland Raiders. They're not great. They're not bad, but they're not great. And he has just gotten a consistent amount of work. Alex Smith checks down all the time. He catches so many balls out of the backfield. And he is, let me look at what he's going for. He is going for 9,400, so he would be one of your other studs. Another running back I really like this week is Arian Foster. Arian Foster is going for 8,600. He has a stellar matchup this week against the St. Louis Rams, who have given up an average of 126 yards to running backs, and they've given up 5 TDs, so over a touchdown a game to running backs this year. He's going for 8,600. I like him as well. DeMarco Murray has a great matchup. DeMarco Murray is going for, let me look here. Murray's going for 7,800. He is playing against the Washington defense again, which the Washington defense has given up. Now this is slightly skewed because they played the Eagles early on, but the Washington defense has given up 142.25 yards per game on the ground and rushing, and 4 touchdowns, which is a touchdown a game. So again, that's a little bit skewed because they played a team that where Michael Vick ran quite a bit, ran with the ball. But so I like Dez Bryant as well. When I'm looking at value backs, Pickens are a little slim. Getting deeper on this week. So Jacksonville's terrible against the run, and Noshawn Moreno's going for $7,000. He is going to get a ton of work probably later in the game if they choose to pull their starters. Other guys going down, Eddie Lacy, I picked him up last week and he did well for me. He's playing against Baltimore, which hasn't been very good. He's going for 6,400. Let's see what we're looking at. I also like, actually as a deep value back, I really like Willis McGahee. He's going for $4,800, which is super cheap, which would free up cap space everywhere. I like Willis McGahee because of the bulk of work he got last week. He got 20-plus carries, over 100 yards. With Hoyer out, they are playing small ball over in Cleveland. And the Cleveland is playing against Detroit, and Detroit has surrendered 124.5 yards a game and 5 touchdowns to opposing defenses. So it's a good matchup. He's super cheap. So as far as value goes, that's that. So I'm looking at 3 studs. My 3 studs, I'm definitely taking Bryant and probably Thomas. I'll probably take either Tony Romo if I go stud quarterback. If I go stud running back, I'll probably take either Jamal Charles or Arian Foster. Foster's got a great matchup. He's coming in hot the last couple of weeks. They're really unsure of their quarterback situation right now. I'm not going to be shocked if he gets 20-plus carries and has a monster game. So yeah, again, if you're curious about my principles, go ahead and check my previous videos. I'm by no means an expert. I say this at the end of every video. I'm not an expert at all. I just really like doing this. I've done the research. I've been very successful. You can look at my recap vid from last week if you want. As always, have fun. Don't risk more than you're willing to lose. And have a great fantasy week. And never play Thursday players. By the way, I saw a guy on chat complaining, pissing and moaning about how the fact that he played a Thursday game and he picked Kelvin Johnson, and then he thought it was unfair that he couldn't unlock Kelvin Johnson for the Sunday games. I told you that in the last video. I said I never play Thursday games because of something like that. And actually, I had Johnson in my lineup all the way up until about 11:30 on Sunday when they announced he wasn't playing, and I subbed in Dez Bryant. And so never play Thursday games. Never risk more than you're willing to lose. And have fun with it. Peace.